Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And here we are, Youngmi.
Wow, we made it to the end. Well, I guess this will come out in June. So Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month is over. So you can go back to not giving a shit.
Yes. You can finally rest and catch up on The Sopranos and go back to just living your normal life, everybody.
In fact, turn this episode off. I'm just kidding. No, don't, because our guest this week is so exciting.
So good. But you know, Youngmi, I think after AAPI Heritage Month, it's instilled me with a lot of confidence. Because every month we're surprised how amazing all of our guests are every week. And we're like, this week it's the best ever. You know what? We fucking rule. Our podcast is the shit. And yes, all of our guests are the shit. Because
yes,
we deserve it. And there's so much good shit out there. So we rule.
Yes. This feels yucky, but yes. I'm proud of us.
That was that basically was my audition to be a coach for a straight to streamer Disney movie. So if any of y'all
that felt like
if your casting director is listening and you felt somewhat inspired, contact me at feelingasianpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
You definitely lost that role to Steven Yeun. You're not. It's not going to happen for you.
I know.
I thought that. Brian. I thought that sounded like exposure therapy. I was like, I know Brian's therapist made him do that. I am proud of myself, and
and let's be real, we are 2 AAPI Heritage Months away from Steven Yeun to not have to do bad Disney movies anymore.
Yes. That'll be Brian's time to shine.
But anyways, enough about us. I think our listeners are very excited for our guest this week. I think we should introduce them, Youngmi.
Yes, please.
The honor is all mine. Listeners, you are in for a treat. Your guest this week is the owner of You and Me Books. Everyone, please give your ears to Lucy Yu.
Hello. So excited to be here. Happy AAPI ending month. So back to Sopranos month.
Yes.
Apparently.
What are you gonna do with all your newfound free time, Lucy?
Pride Month.
Pride month. Of course.
Pride month.
Yep.
There we go.
AAPI month is all. I love it because I do get a lot of work, and we got that spotlight this month, and I was so excited for that, and it was like really, really great. But it's also kind of exhausting to be like, thank you for having us like all month long. Like, thank you. I am Asian. So part of me is a little relieved, I have to say.
They got to spread it out. A little bit more. Every Asian is like tired right now. We're like, what? What happened?
Yeah. We should have 1 week every 4 months. Every 3 months.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's better.
Asian week a quarter.
One per season.
But, we are recording this in the thick of May. We have like a solid 5 days left because the listeners don't know that because they're listening to it in June. So you're getting the real authentic voices of tired Asians at the last leg. I can't even say last. I keep saying last leg of AAPI month. Oh my God. We've been doing the benefits and the events.
But it's all good. You got this. I believe in you, Youngmi. Finish strong.
Got this. We got Lucy here. I'm so excited.
I've just decided that I'm going to be an optimistic coach for this entire episode. Let's do it, y'all.
Brian is auditioning. He is on the audition circuit right now.
But Lucy, thank you for joining us on the podcast. And, we have so much that we want to discuss with you, namely your wonderful bookstore. And personally, I want to get some literary tea from you. But before we dive into all of that and ask you how you feel, Youngmi, how are you feeling?
Well, I guess I should talk about this now because I guess this is the one chance I'll get to talk about it. Like I said, we're recording this. I know.
I'm bracing for
Get
impact.
ready, everyone. Well, you know, well, like I said, we're recording this, you know, during the last few days of May. So if you know, are listening in June, you know, this is right after all of the horrible shootings, which, you know, there were 3 mass shootings in the span of a week. And I had a lot of feelings about, obviously, the first one was just so intense, where it's like a white supremacist, you know, targeting Black Americans, and like that's horrifying. And then, you know, there was another anti-Asian hate crime mass shooting, which is blowing my mind because it was very similar to the Atlanta shootings a year ago, and like the lack of any news coverage that it had, you know, even in our community, is just very it's understandable because we're all at our, you know, we can't really survive consuming this much negative content, obviously, but it's like shocking that, you know, the difference in the 2 shootings. And then of course the very tragic shooting that happened in the elementary school. Is it Alveda, Texas?
Yeah,
I'm
in
so
Texas.
sorry. Is that where that is?
Yeah, Uvalde.
Of Uvalde, I'm sorry. And that, like, you know, when that shooting was happening, like the first day or 2, I was just like staying offline, but I like caught up on the news yesterday, and it was just like, it's just too much, you know, like it's like too much. And I know I told Brian this, but I know Brian and I were both talking about how just traumatized we are, and I know that it's like really hitting people because, you know, it's just hard when it's like little children. But, you know, that day basically I was flying in from Chicago, and my ex-husband was dropping my son off at school, and I was supposed to like pick him up from school, and like just like sitting there realizing like, oh my god, he's like in school right now, you know. Like that was like really hard. And then when I picked him up, I was like, you know, like just really like focusing on him and like trying to hang out with him. And I told him about the shooting, and I told Brian this already, but like I was really upset because I read the thing about the cops didn't go in because they were scared, and they made up this lie about him, the shooter, wearing a bulletproof vest, which was found out to be a lie because he wasn't. And they just failed those children, and I was really angry about that. So I just told my son, I was like, you know, like, because, you know, he's 8 and he's obsessed with cops and the army and guns. And he looks up to them in a way. And you know, I've been like spreading my anti-cop propaganda, but like I was like, you know what happened? The cops were too fucking scared, and they didn't go in, and they didn't protect the children, and that's their fucking job. And again, I was angry, and obviously I don't want to get too political about that, but like, so I said that, and then I said, but you know who did protect the children were the teachers, and they protected the children, and they died. And like without even like missing a beat, Mino was like, my son was like, well, of course they protected the children because they loved them. And it was just like, it just like took my breath away, because I was like, Mino fucking gets it. Mino fucking gets it. You know what I mean? He understands, like, I think this is like, I don't want to like judge anybody for, because I know this is a rough issue, but like, it's a weird job to force somebody to be a police officer, because they don't give a fuck about those people. They don't know those people. They're not going to fucking do anything. And when they actually finally let them in, they all ran and got their own kids first, because that's human nature. Like, why would anyone fucking risk their lives for a fucking kid that they didn't know, you know? And of course, if you're the teacher, like, you spend all day with them and you're gonna fucking risk your life. Like, that's just, we all, like, inherently understand that. You know what I mean? And, like, when Mino said that, I was like, yes! Like, we all know that deep down inside, right? Sorry, this is getting too emotional, but like it just like really shook me when he said that, because it was just like, damn, like he fucking gets it. Everyone gets it, you know? And a lot of people, you know, I'm not trying to judge all cops, but like a lot of cops become cops because they play fucking Fortnite and they think it's gonna be like guns, you know, like they become cops to like enforce power on people. They don't become cops to like help fucking children, because that's what teachers do, you know? Because it's like, if you want to become a teacher, you do it because you want to help people. And it's just, I think there's like something really wrong about like how we look at these roles in our society. Sorry, I don't want to get I'm really trying to reel it in. I'm so sorry, Lucy. I don't want to like, obviously we talk about our feelings on this podcast, but this is like, the wheels are popping off this train, so I'm going to reel it in. But all I want to say is like, when Mino said that, I thought it was very profound. And I, you know, he always surprises me every day, you know, as little children do, like, because they just like understand things. And I think we all do to some degree. So I'm just feeling very devastated and sad is how I'm feeling. Brian, how are you feeling?
Oh God. Well, you know, I think I echo a lot of the similar frustrations that you carry with you. Yeah, just to tack on to that, you know, obviously, it's been a very heavy week. You know, at the time of this recording, the news cycle has just been very, very sad and very traumatic. I mean, obviously, on the with the elementary school shooting, I immediately thought of my niece, who is just like a couple years younger than the victims of this tragedy. And I just have such a hard time wrapping my brain around all of it. Like, obviously, I mean, personally, I just think all of this is just, there's a huge issue with gun laws here in this country that I think we're on the cusp of a moment of reckoning. And I guess constantly I just feel like when things like this occur, and unfortunately it seems to be happening with more frequency in this country, and in contrast to, you know, Youngmi, like what we do day to day is like, we're comedians and this is our work and this is what we do. And like I'm finding myself I question myself, like, how to be a good citizen, and like, is what I'm doing like the right thing, is what lately of how I've been feeling. Because on the heels of some on news like this, to just like go back to our microphones and crack jokes and stuff, it seems inappropriate in a way, but not to, you know, like, there's so many different ways to look at it, but that's just lately how I've been feeling. It was like, I hope what I'm doing is contributing in some way, shape, or form, but also I'm questioning, like, am I like a good citizen? And
well,
I don't even know exactly, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I think what you're saying is valid. Like, something big happens and you want to like create space for the gravity of that incident, you know, and for it to like take up space, and maybe you want to stop for a moment and not do work, which I think is very valid. And I think a lot of people are feeling that, because a lot of people are like, well, I'm supposed to go back to work right now.
Yeah, like, that's you just said
it
so much more with more clarity. That's how it feels, you know. I think
like,
a lot of
shouldn't
people
we have pause for a second? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you know what? On the other side of the coin, like, I'm just grateful that I have friends and family who are in good health, and I can like
Yeah.
take a moment and take pause to cherish all the good that's around me, because the new cycle is a reminder that all of that, nothing's guaranteed. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's very sad.
So frustrating.
Right.
Well, I mean, you know what you said? You said that like we're on this cusp of something changing, but it's like we've been here before, and that's like really scary to me. And it's like,
yeah.
what's gonna happen? Nothing again? And then what? You know, this, it's like so depressing. Just that hopeless feeling, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. But that's basically how I've been feeling this week. But yeah, sorry Lucy. It's been a heavy week.
It's a
What?
downer. Sorry.
Both of you definitely don't need to apologize to me. I mean, if anything, just thank you for sharing, because I think we just don't have many spaces where we can be really open about our feelings. And you
Yeah.
sharing your feelings in a space that I'm in allows me to share my feelings in an honest way. Because I think it's almost impossible for all of us to process what we've been through in the last week, in the last couple years. Like, I just don't think, like, I feel like my brain's broken. I'm like, how do I continue to process this, you know? And it's been tough for me because I left the corporate world in which that space wasn't built to heal my brain, heal a little bit of what's going on. Because it's like, well, like, let's go back to productivity. And I think now owning my own business, and like you said, you know, we have to somehow get up the next day and like do our jobs and somehow keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that now, okay, I'm responsible for doing that for myself, but like my brain isn't even working. Like, I don't even know how to start with that. Like, I think that I believe it was on Monday, I came to the store to do some errands, and I was walking around Canal Street, which is my subway stop, and I take like a hour commute every day. And I realized the subway stop was closed because there was a shooting right around the time that I got in at my subway stop. So I think it's, you know, starting from, and I don't have the privilege of being able to Uber home all the time. You know, it's so expensive in the city. It's like if I Uber home, it's like $80 one way all the way to Queens. And
Yeah.
I have to take the subway. There's no other way for me to get around. And I think hearing that attack on top of like the terrible other attacks going on, it's really hard to like in my body, I feel devastated, but in my brain, I feel so numb, if that makes any sense. Like I am like aching all over the place. I'm just like sluggish, and I just feel like it's hard for me to move around. But my brain just isn't like, it's just not there yet. I think my body knew before my brain did. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes, I totally feel that. My body
resonate
is
with what you
so
said
sore.
very deeply.
Yeah. And then my brain is numb because
Yeah.
it's like, I've noticed that now when like big things happen, like the shooting, you know, like the grade school shooting, I was like, it took me like 2 days. Like, you know, I'm just now feeling sad about it, and it's like the 26th of May, and I think it's been 3 days now, because I was just like looking at the news like brain dead. So I know what you mean. But also, I'm gonna say this in just like a touch of hopefulness here. It's just giving me license to be fucking chaotic AF. I'm just like, fuck it. It's like Wednesday at 3 a.m. I'm gonna go out. Woo! Like, right?
It's
like
all
I'm
a
just
blur
like,
anyways, right? So you're like, well, let's
a
make it more
blur.
blurry.
Who
Like,
cares? Yeah, like what you were saying. Oh, I have my own business now. Now I have to run it by myself. I don't know how to do. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either. I don't know what I have to do. I have no idea what I have to do tomorrow. Literally wake up in a panic every day.
yeah.
So next time you're doing a line of K at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, and stop Asian hate, y'all.
Hashtag.
That's how I decided to stop Asian hate, by doing ketamine at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. I'm an activist.
Oh gosh. Well, Lucy, you mentioned, we want to dive into our conversation because there's so much that we want to know about you. And, you mentioned that you are a business owner, which is You and Me Books. And for our listeners who may not be familiar or they live outside of New York, You and Me Books is New York's first Asian female-owned bookstore. But before you started this business, you were a chemical engineer by trade. So what we want to know is what compelled you to make the shift from avid book reader to what is now your second career calling?
Wait, Lucy, why did you make that face when Brian said chemical engineer? You're like cringe.
I'm like, oh God, I just immediately got stressed about the reactors that I have to design. No, I feel like, I don't know. I think earlier in my life, when I was a teen, I thought there was a very linear path for my life to follow. I'm like, I'm going to be, blah, blah, blah. And like, I knew going to have a 401k or whatever and then retire. And then that's when I'm going to really want to do what I want to do at 65. And I don't know. I lost one of my best friends in 2020. And I think, and that was when I was 26. And I was like, maybe I won't make it to 65. Maybe I won't make it to next year and I have no idea what's going to happen. And there were a lot of doubts that came into my head of, well, if this bookstore is not successful, like what the hell am I going to do? I just blew out all my savings buying these books that I'm going to have to read throughout the course of my life. But I there's so much doubt in my head, but I thought like, look, worst case scenario, I can always go back to do what I'm doing now. Always be a supply chain manager, always be a chemical engineer. I think that I can always, there's no point where I'm like, okay, you can't come back. And I think I realized from doing that, it's like, you know what? Like, fuck it. Like, what if this isn't that, like, forever for me either? And that's okay. Like, I think my only career choice is that I'm like a lifetime career changer. And that's really okay. I think that there was a lot of toxic ideology behind that when I was younger of like, you're switching around jobs too much, so it's bad for your resume. That's like, companies are going to like that. I'm like, look, we're at a phase where I'm at a phase where I'm like, I'm not going to live my life based on what companies want me to do, because I have a whole life to live and they just have a salary to give me. So it was a complete mind shift change for me.
Because they don't give a shit about you anyway.
No, I mean, I've realized
so why
that.
do you care?
Right, right. And I think like in my previous career, something that really pushed me out of it was I found out that people were calling me egg roll behind my back, actually at work.
What?
Yeah, true story.
No, drop the ats. Tell us the ats. We're going to bully them. All the Feeling Asian listeners, we're going to dox them now.
You know what's sad is that it wasn't even just one person. So
all of them. We're going to bully all of them.
So it was that, and I think that I told like the head of HR and I told all of them, and they're like, look, like you're going to be in the manufacturing field. You're going to have to learn how to deal with this. That was their response to it. So,
Jesus.
And
no, drop their ats right now.
Already a minority female in a majority male space, on top of that being a female of color, it's like, fuck this. Like, there's a part of me that's like feeling guilty that I should have stayed to make it better for other women down the line, but also I had a life to live too. I couldn't just keep doing that.
What kind of world is this where you can't even be in chemical engineering without dealing with that bullshit? Like, is there any fucking space that's safe? You know what I mean?
Well, for one, we definitely know that the supply chain management space is not a safe space.
No, I've lived in that space for many years. Not safe either.
Wow. Well, that's so interesting that you basically, one of the reasons that you left your former career is like this like unchecked racism that nobody wanted to do anything about.
Yeah. I mean, I think at that point I was like, well, if I switch careers, like maybe that'll change. And I went into supply chain for a couple years after that as well, and I was a supply chain manager.
Yeah.
And no field is safe. I'm like,
And
no,
I also
where's
want
safe?
to. I also want to point out that the moment Lucy left the supply chain field, global supply chain has gone to absolute shit.
Wow.
Coincidence?
I think not. I think not. Let that be a lesson to you, racists. You made your bed. Now sleep in it. Why are the bananas $10 now? Why are the bananas $10 now? Okay?
Well, you know, one thing I'm curious about is like, why a bookstore? Like, did you are you just like, do you love books? And was it as simple as that? You're like, wow, it's always been like a romantic dream of mine to own a bookstore. Or is there, you know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely always loved books. I was an only child. First of all, that means I'm totally normal. Everything's fine. Second of all, that means all my friends were books growing up. And I don't know. I think part of the supply chain part of me is like, I know this is like this romantic ideal of you owning a bookstore is not going to be the full reality. Like, it's going to be part of it, but you're going to have to deal with the finances. You're going to have to deal with the margin and assets and all the bullshit that comes with owning a business. But nothing made me happier than books. I think in 2021, in the beginning of the year, I was working so many hours and I was so burnt out. And I think it was just, when it just like so many things happened and I took 3 weeks off work. I took my entire PTO for the year in January. And all I did was read 2 books a day. Like, I was like, I'm not getting out of this couch. My ass is on the couch. I am potato and I'm reading these books. And it healed me in a certain way. I think a lot of that, just traveling to different people's worlds and perspectives, really helped me figure out a circuitous route to healing from my own world. It took a long time, but I think I always found comfort in that. Like, I think I find more of myself through fiction and through reading other people's perspectives. And I was like, well, I bet other people feel this way. I hope other people feel this way. And something that I realized was I was constantly creating these lists and digging through in bookstores for more diverse voices. And especially Asian American authors and stories that I never read growing up. Like, I loved Minor Feelings, but there's so much more out there too. And I just didn't see much of it. And I think that I was like, well, there's a space here that I really feel like is important to me to be represented. And also it's been healing to me. So let's see if this is healing for someone else. Let's see if someone else is hungry for this.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Wait. So when did you open the bookstore? Because you were saying 2021, you were like really overwhelmed with work. You took a break. And then after that,
yeah, and then I kept working. I launched a GoFundMe in May for the bookstore. And that got me really excited because I saw so many people that were so excited about the bookstore, and they ended up opening in December. And I was still working full-time for the first couple of months that I was opening up the bookstore as well. So I was working 2 jobs. And I quit my full-time job, my corporate job, a couple months ago. So the bookstore is now my full-time job.
Oh.
Wait, so my question, this was my question. Is your store, does it just specialize in only Asian authors?
It does not. And I think that that's been like a bit difficult for me to manage because I think there is a focus on Asian American literature because like I'm trying to figure out myself while opening this store. And I want to see that representation, but it's so much more than that. It's really a focus on immigrant stories and how we can relate to other immigrant stories as well.
Oh, I love that. Gosh. I mean, yeah, I just want to point out that when the GoFundMe was happening for the bookstore, I was just getting inundated with so many Instagram stories about the bookstore, just from disparate, like, just so many different people and that I've met in New York through like the AAPI network. And I don't know, I think it's a really beautiful thing. I feel like your bookstore is sort of it's like an evidence of how like it's just like evidence of like collective engagement and how there is a need for a space like this. And I don't know, I think what you're doing is like fucking amazing. And
thank you.
And
Yeah, it was so wanted.
But I also think it's interesting that you pointed out how, you know, you're using your background in supply chain and sort of understanding how a business works and towards like and applying it to your own bookstore. And people often stress the importance of like support your local bookstore. And I guess what we want to know is like, what are some facets of the book selling business that people may not be aware of? Like, what is the importance of having diverse bookstore owners? And I don't know, like, how has Amazon affected like the books, like local bookstore model? Like, give us all the tea.
Yeah, ooh, let's spill some tea. I think the Amazon model is something that's super frustrating to me because it allows for people to read the same like 20 books over and over again. And it's especially curated for your selection, but that selection is constantly being pushed by like the publishing world and what books have the more backing around it. And I think independent bookstores actually handpick most of their books so that they're actually sharing a story that they've connected to that may not have been on the New York Times bestsellers list. I would say like 99% of the books I have in store are not on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Wow.
And I think that that's really important because when we're confined to just what's being pushed in our faces, it really limits our perceptions of what's out there.
Wait, was that like, can I ask you a question? Was that
Yeah.
like how bookstores like back in the day, you know, obviously I'm like a decade older than you, so I remember bookstores like was that like the model that they were run before Amazon, where small like bookstore owners would like curate books that they thought were important?
I'm so new to the business, so I have no idea what other bookstores are doing. But I know that when I first started, I didn't have any reps for any of the publishers, so I was handpicking all the books. But now that I have a little bit more support, they're like, okay, you're like a real bookstore, so we'll add some help. I noticed that, you know, a lot of the publishers will push certain books to bookstores, so I think that people will just choose from those lists. And I have two from some of the lists that have been curated, but I still handpick like 80% of the titles that I have in store.
I'm like getting so many flashbacks because I'm old. Like I remember being a kid and going to like record stores and bookstores, and obviously they would. I think that like back then it was important for you to live in a big city because the big cities had all the books or all the records. So like when I would visit like Seoul or something, I could go to the record store and get all these like records and CDs that they didn't have at my hometown. Sorry, I'm like really aging myself. And but like I think that's like such an interesting that just like hit me as so fascinating because that just no longer exists, you know, like wherever you are in the world you have access to all the books. And like the phenomenon of like going into a bookstore looking for something and them not having it, you know, like that is like, I mean, no more.
That happens all the time. People come in and they're like, do you have this title? I was like, no, we can order it for you. But if you are looking for something similar, here are some of our recommendations. And so a lot of times
but
people...
I kind of love that. I love it when they don't have the book. It's cool.
But I, you know, one thing that I have become privy to since living in New York and, I don't know, just expanding my ideas of like cultural programming is like book tours and like seeing authors speak. Are you hand selecting the authors who come and host a speaking engagement at your store, or is there like pressure from publishers to be like, you and me books, like you got to have this person?
There's a little bit of both. I handpick everything. Like I wouldn't say yes to an author that I didn't want to have at my store. But I think that what I've noticed, and I've gone to a couple like publishing meet and greets, and they'll always like guaranteed always pair me up with the only other Asian author that's there. They're like, Lucy, go like talk to blah blah blah. Like, oh, this is Lucy Yu, by the way. She owns the Asian bookstore. It's like it's not an Asian bookstore. Like I don't know how to. And I think that I've been, because I started this like I never said previously in my GoFundMe or anything that it's specifically an Asian American literature bookstore.
Right.
But I feel like I've been kind of pigeonholed into that a little bit because of who I am as a person and how I present. And the publishers, I even got like, I was talking with a publisher once, and they were like, well, you know what? I'm excited to hear that, like, you know, there's going to be more of an outlet for Asian American books. Like, I'm tired of, like, not I'm tired, but I think we're looking for a change from such a focus on Black owned bookstores and, books written by like Black authors. And I was like, wait, like there's like centuries of books written by white authors. Like, aren't you tired of that? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. So I think the publishing industry is very interesting, and I'm like the newbie that's like finding my footing in it and learning something all the time, because I don't really
Right.
like, things are happening and I'm like, oh, is this like normal for other bookstores? And still figuring that out.
Yeah.
And so the books that are presented by the publisher are usually books that I am interested in, but they're almost always, if any publisher recommends an author to come to my story, it's automatically an Asian author. That's for sure.
I also had the sense that you're an Asian only bookstore, so I don't know where I picked up that information, but that's what I assume. So maybe I'm the problem. I'm the drama.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, my follow-up question here is it a top-down issue then? Because, you know, it's amazing that you have this space, and equal parts frustrating that people just assume that you only are going to carry Asian American authors. But at the very least, these publishing houses are providing like the opportunity of, hey, we have this up and coming author, would you book them for a speaking engagement? Like, would you say 10 years ago, like, if you were an Asian American author, would those opportunities have just like not existed because Asian-owned bookstores were probably even more rare than they are now?
Yeah, I don't even know if that would even be an option like 10 years ago. Because even now it's like, I have these authors that are like, finally I have somewhere I can go to.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's some really big bookstores in the city as well, but I think something that is really welcoming for a space for their story is something that hasn't always been there.
And this is just I guess like this is more like a personal question that I'm kind of, this is the gossip in me, but can you like tell like immediately when someone walks into your bookstore and you kind of like can pin them already, like what type of book they're gonna choose, or like are there like personality types associated to certain book choices?
I hate that I'm that kind of person, but like totally. I watch someone come in and I'm like, God, they're gonna ask me like, I really loved Pachinko, like, do you have any recommendations? And I'm like, okay, like I already have the list in my head. And when they ask me, I'm like never surprised. But I also like, I love a family. I don't know. It's always funny. There's like always a family visiting New York and they're like, oh, so, this is Asian, right? And I'm like, I don't even know how to start. Like, I don't know how to answer that. I'm like, I'm Asian, but like, I don't know what you're asking.
Wow. Do you get a lot of those like tourists like in Chinatown? Like, yeah.
They're like, look, like I'm an ally. No, I mean, I do definitely get a lot of tourists in Chinatown, but I think it's mostly good things. Like, people have been really showing up and supporting the store, and I really like, I always make fun of everything I do, but I cannot knock the amount of support that I've gotten from all over the world and like all over the US as well.
Yeah. Can I say something about, I think it's so interesting that you're doing a bookstore, because I didn't realize how young you were, but it's I'm saying this very lovingly, but like, you know, those, I feel like like a year ago, somebody that was like Gen Z was like, oh my God, this is like a thing that will take your Instagram pictures and make them into like real pictures that you can hold. I've never seen that before, or something. And they're like, congrats, you invented the Polaroid. Like, they had never seen like a camera that has like Polaroid pictures, because all the pictures they saw online were like on the internet. But it's like, obviously I'm not saying like, it's like really interesting because you were saying like how the business is, and even I, you know, I'm like 10 years older than you, and I'm like, how were bookstores back in the day? I don't know either. And it's like so interesting that, do you know what I mean? Like you're doing this industry that.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I think I always joke that one
ancient.
of the
Yeah.
top questions I get asked is, how does this work in the bookstore? And
Oh, really?
and then after that, it's like, are these books for sale? And I'm like, what do you think?
What?
Like, I'm confused by the question.
Yeah, because I was like, I realized that talking to you, like when I was like thinking about record stores and like books, that was like a large portion of my childhood that was still a thing, and I was kind of like, how did it work? What did we do in there? Like, who chose the books? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I've
interesting.
never been a big online shopper, so I think I'm like
really?
just an old lady.
So, and on the side, are you emailing with an anonymous man who is actually Jeff Bezos' son?
Oh my god, I was
A
gonna
la
ask.
You've Got Mail.
Oh my god, is he the Tom Hanks and I'm the Meg Ryan in this situation?
Who's your Tom Hanks? Yeah, Jeff
Tom Hanks
Bezos'
is Jeff
son.
Bezos' son. But
Oh my god, the other day I looked up Jeff Bezos because he's very secretive about his children, and one of his children, like the only one that they know the name of, his literal name is like something horrible. It's like Baron, you know, like Baron
Benedict?
Trump. It's something like, it's like Princeton Bezos or something, and I'm like, ew.
I will say though that I am a very basic book consumer. So whatever you're choosing to put on the front table, that's what I'm going for. And I
Yes.
browse, and then I'm gonna find the cover that looks the most enticing, and then I'm going to cross-reference that with Goodreads rating, and then if it has fewer than 3.8, I ain't reading that shit.
Wow.
I want to do a quick plug also for Storygraph, which is Goodreads but not owned by Amazon.
Wait,
Storygraph.
Goodreads is owned by Amazon?
It is.
No!
Can't escape Princeton Bezos.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
So
Wait.
I've like changed over to Storygraph because I'm like, oh my god, I didn't realize Goodreads was owned by Amazon.
Yo. Damn, my mind
Can't
is
win.
blown. But I want to shift gears here a little bit, and you kind of alluded to this briefly in that, you know, people might mistake your bookstore as specializing in entirely like Asian and Asian American literature. And I guess, you know, but you are a pioneer of your field. You own like the first woman-owned Asian, you are the owner of the first Asian female-owned bookstore in all of New York City. And, you know, oftentimes Asians who are pioneers or lone representatives in a particular field are put on a pedestal. And while this is great, this can also be dangerous because then these representatives can be expected to encompass all of the Asian American experiences. And I feel like you touched on this, but is this something that you're currently like experiencing in the early aughts of your bookstore?
It's been tough because I didn't expect anyone, when I first launched a bookstore, I wouldn't expect anyone to care. I thought I was going to have to like pay my friends to come. But I think now it's been so wonderful to see the support, and so exciting. It's been really hard for me because I am very much of like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Still, I'm figuring things out. I would never say that I represent anything general about Asian America or Asian Americans. I'm like, and I think that from my experience, it's been very difficult because I think a lot of people will now challenge my identity. I never grew up with other Asian Americans. I grew up in predominantly like Latinx and white spaces in Los Angeles. And so I'm not going to get a lot of the Asian American references that are being brought up. And so I've now heard from other Asian Americans, they're like, are you even Asian? Like, are you Asian American enough? And when I hear that, it's tough because I'm like, okay, I'm entering this space that even though I am Asian American, I haven't been around a ton of other Asian Americans. And I'm like, I'm worried that, am I not Asian American enough? And outside of the Asian American space, am I like not American enough? So I think it's a weird space that I'm in, just personally. I know this is getting like really like philosophical, but you know, figuring that out, and figuring out my own identity while a lot of people are expecting me to, you know, curate for so many Asian Americans is something that I'm like definitely trying to balance.
Yeah. Well, we've heard that a lot. You know, people feeling like they don't, I guess, like deserve to, you know, be the representative of their identity. But I just think that just we share this quote all the time, but our former guest Karen Chi said, like, just you being Asian means that everything you're doing is Asian enough and no one gets to tell you otherwise. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you are Asian, so whatever you do and say is good enough, and there's no group of people you have to prove anything to, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. This is so interesting because, you know, this is like our first time meeting, and I guess I had my preconceptions about you based on what I read in the news and like who you are and like what your business is about. And I was like, I felt what you just described of like, man, like Lucy is this pillar of Asian, like of the Asian community, and she's probably an expert of Asian literature, and you know, books are more are a more intellectual medium than podcasting, and like, fuck, am I Asian enough to even interview her? Like,
we're all feeling like we're all just like, what the fuck is going on, and who are we?
Should we just go? Should we just tell each other, you are Asian enough? Just like over and over again.
Oh my god. That's so funny. But that is, yeah, that I'm sure that sounds really challenging though, because like it is a side effect of your business, and now like I guess people are expecting you to be like a quote unquote an expert, especially since like you own a business in Chinatown, and
especially a bookstore.
Right.
Yeah, I've always been like, I really am figuring things out. I'm never going to be the expert at anything.
Yeah.
I too struggle with depression. I struggle with anxiety. I question myself all the time. And I think I think there's also like this idea of business owners. My mom was like, your family in China thinks that you're too naive to own your own business. And I think that it's funny because it's like, they're like, they think you're too nice. And when the idea of a business owner is like traditionally very stern, very like, okay, like this is my way, I'm going to keep going until this, like, lean in. And that's not who I am as a person. And I think I never found that within the business space. And I think there's a lot of room for us to welcome people that just are like, we're out here like struggling with so much
I think
stuff.
you're totally right. I totally agree with that. I feel like there's like some sort of like idea that like business owners, like this person wearing a suit, or you know, like this old man yelling at you or whatever, but you don't have to be like that. And I feel like you just being here, being a business owner and being very open about the fact that you're like, I don't know what I'm doing either. That's like very refreshing. And it's like great to hear. But I'm like spiraling because I feel like, am I the fucking problem? Because I feel like what Brian said, I had this image of you being like Asian person that knows all about Asia and it's Asian books. Like I thought that too, and now I'm like, why did I think that? That was just, nobody told me that. I just thought that on my own. So, you know.
Well, I think we're all like itching. Oh, sorry, I'm totally interrupting. Go ahead, Brian.
No, go on.
It's just the Zoom. Yeah, what were you saying?
No, I just think we're like, we had so much scarcity in our lives. Like we just never, we never saw much of ourselves. And so when we see someone that's like kind of like us, we're like, they know it all. Like they got it figured out. And like, we just, no one does. And we just like saw so many white protagonists figure that out and fail and be okay, and like we just haven't seen that with Asian people.
Yeah,
right,
that's such a good point.
Right. Well, one thing is for certain is that I feel like Asian American authors are fucking killing it in the literary space.
Oh my god, they are.
And I'm saying, obviously I have a bias, but I feel like it's pretty objective because anytime I go look at the front table, I'm like, damn, there's a lot of Asian authors here, and all these books are bangers, and I probably am gravitating towards them because I'm an Asian person, and these are the types of stories I want to read, but I'm going to ignore that fact. We're killing it out here.
We are
they're
killing
always
it.
in the New York. Yeah.
But I also am really excited for my dad to listen to this podcast episode because you are a very successful business owner, and my dad is upset at me because he expects me to wear a suit every day because I'm a 32-year-old man.
That's so funny.
He's like, why are you still wearing jeans? So juvenile. Wear a suit.
Wait, can I say something? One more thing that you said at the top of the conversation that before we move on to the other questions. So you were talking about how, when you started the business, because you really wanted to, you were like, well, I could always come back to this other job, right?
Yeah.
The chemical engineering. And I have to say, props to, I don't know if this was like your family at all, but I think we've had a lot of guests on that did follow through with what their parents wanted, like went to a good school and then went and got a good job. And then after achieving all that, decided that they were going to switch and do what their dream is, much like you did. But I think props to, I guess what I'm trying to say is like there is a benefit of doing that because like you said, you're going to try your dream, and if it doesn't go the way that you want it to, I'm not saying it's going to fail or succeed. If you're just unhappy doing it, then you can go back to something that you have something that you can fall on, quote unquote. And that was like, I think what a lot of our parents were wanting for us. They were like, set up this foundation so then you can experiment with what makes you happy, and then you'll have something to fall back on. And so I think in that way, like it is a good plan. Obviously a lot of people are unhappy.
100%. But
I should have listened because now
damn.
I didn't go to college. I have nothing. I
I'm
got
fucking
waitressing.
spiraling, young me. What you just said is gonna spark a long conversation with my mom because I was gonna go to med school and I
Should have listened.
I ditched that shit to do comedy, and I have so many conversations like, what do you mean, Mom and Dad? I can't just be a doctor and then transition and become a comedian. The time is now. I gotta quit. And here we are. I have no backups but this.
Honestly,
and here I'm talking to Lucy, who's got the backups, and she's
Y'all,
fucking killing it.
I would not want to go the backup. Like the backup is the backup because like I was like, it was the same thing, I was like, well,
Yeah.
I was pre-med first, realized I really hate blood, and I was like, I don't think I can operate on people. Let me do the next hardest thing.
Oh.
So let me do engineering. I hate it. Honestly,
Nice.
I like really don't think I liked it. I really was so miserable for all of college. Like people talk about like how college was so fun.
Let's go.
And I was like, look, like I love my friends that I hung out with in college, but like holy shit, college was so miserable because
Yo,
of,
preach.
God.
That was my
Right?
experience. We need to normalize that narrative. College is not fun. It's always studying at the library on Friday nights, and it's stressful AF.
I was so stressed. Like I had to go to the hospital because I had heart palpitations because I was drinking too much coffee, and the doctor's
God.
like,
Yo,
"Ma'am?"
me too.
Right? Like
Yeah, I went to the
Wow.
ER during a final because I had a panic attack.
Same. And I think we should normalize
Right,
that conversation. Like we shouldn't be like, college is so fun. It's like if you are expected to succeed in a certain way and you're like supposed to go on this path that you really don't want. Like I wanted to be a studio artist, an English major, and like a concentration in mathematics. Like that's like what I wanted. And that just like wasn't possible for the path that I was
Wow.
expected to be on. So I'm like living that now, but I'm like, I think back, I'm like, was it even worth it for a backup plan that I hope I never go back on?
Trust me, it's worth it because you don't want your backup plan to be waitressing because that's my backup plan. And that's fucking scary.
I'll take that over chemical engineering any day. I'll take waitressing.
Really?
Yeah, any day. I would
All right.
first
I feel better about my decisions.
100%.
Solving the global supply chain issue seems stressful as fuck.
I was like, Oh, okay. That makes me feel better. Also, I have to say, I have 0 student loan debt. So
See?
there.
go.
And I know that's hard for a lot of people, but I do have a lot of other debt because I'm bad with money. But that's another story. Whoopsie.
Well, Lucy, thank you so much for, sharing your story and being so vulnerable with us up until now. But we're going to shift gears into the second half of our podcast, which is the lightning round portion, which isn't lightning rounds, but we call it that. So let's begin. First up, what is something you're loving right now?
Mango pomelo drinks from Miss Dew's down the street.
Wait, from where?
Wait, where? Because I live near the bookstore.
Oh my gosh,
what is
you
it
have to
called?
go to Miss Dew's. Like,
Tell
the
me.
mango
Miss
pomelo
Dew's.
drink is out of control.
I'll
I've
go
been
right
getting
now.
one like every other day.
Wait, what's a pomelo? It's
I
kinda like
still don't
it's like a
know.
lime.
So it's like I think it's a big grapefruit looking thing. It looks like a big grapefruit. Like it's this big, right?
I say
Isn't that what
pomelo
that
with
is?
such confidence when I'm ordering it, but I have no idea what
Wait,
it
let me
is.
see.
Let's go. Mango
I'm gonna
pomelo
look
drink. I could go for that right now. But
Yes,
one
I'm
thing-
right. It's a giant grapefruit. It's like the size of your head.
You know what? That's we need to bring back juice. None of this like not
Brian, what an epiphany!
Bring back juice.
Bring back juice.
No, what I'm saying is like we need to stop with this like pressed juice, green celery garbage and just bring back just citrusy good fruit juice.
Yeah, bring back juice that tastes good.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
something I can
the
get
platform
behind.
I'm running on.
But if you're a-
2022.
But if you're a bougie person, one thing that I have been about is these artisanal prebiotic sodas. They're like alternatives to
God.
just regular soda. I'm all about that shit too. I'm the perfect market for that, Lucy, in case you couldn't tell. Like, yes, I'm going to walk into your bookstore. I'm going to pick up the newest Sally Rooney book, and I'm going to be holding a prebiotic soda in my hand while I do it. And you're going to judge me scathingly, as you should.
I'd be like, well, he has a healthy gut, so.
But also bring back juice. That's thin. That's my stance.
Brian is like taking on the most like non-problematic political like stances. You know what I think? Bring back juice. Like absolutely nobody is against Brian. We're all like, yeah, sure,
No,
Brian,
no, no.
yes.
I'm gonna say
Okay,
that
Brian.
Big Juice has taken a hit because it's very sugary, and like celery
you're
juice and almond juice and all these like fucking
Almond
like
juice?
bland alternatives are in the forefront of society. All I'm saying is there's nothing better than a nice cold
F
glass
that,
of
yeah.
OJ on a hot summer day. So bring back
I'm with
juice.
Brian.
But on to our more fun question. Lucy, what is something you're hating right now?
I really hate the heat. I really hate I really hate the summer.
I love the summer.
The TBH, summer, worst season of the year. What? I know.
What?
I know.
Wow.
Really?
That
Even
is a-
worse than when it's
Lucy,
like the
a
sun
very
goes down at
sta-
3 p.m.
Yeah.
I know. Hot take. I hate the hot.
Wow, Lucy, that's a sex negative take.
I know.
Summer is the worst season of the year.
It's a kink shamey
That's
take.
kink shaming.
I'm canceled. I'm canceled because I hate summer.
Oh my god, how? You can drink a frosé at the beach? Come on.
I
Do-
say winter frosé at the beach. Still the same.
I'm kind of.
Spoken like a true book person.
Are bookstores busier in the summer?
I've only been open for almost 6 months. So I think, but people have been definitely out and about over summer. Like we've seen a lot more people come in the last couple of months.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
They're just milling about. They're outside.
They got to be holding the book, looking horny, and
Look-
projecting that they're literate.
Seriously.
I'm literate, I'm horny, and I'm out and about. Let's do it.
Well, who are like a what is it, like a hot girl summer? Like, who are the de facto like hot girl, hot boy summer authors? Like who walk
Oh,
into your store and
yeah.
you're like,
We need
that's
to-
like a hot person.
Hot person's
Book.
book. What do hot people read?
Hot person's book. Like they're like out and about and they're like, I'm ready to read some romance. Helen Hong, who wrote The Kiss
Okay.
Potion. That's some
Okay.
hot
Okay.
stuff. I was
Hot
like
stuff.
reading
Okay,
it
I'm
on the
reading that.
subway. I was like adjusting my hair. I'm like, is it hot in here? There is.
Wait, hot as in horny? Is it a horny book?
It's a horny book. It's a great horny book.
Ooh.
So
Great horny
I'm
book.
and like sometimes people
Uh,
come in and their eyes are like, I need it, and I'm like, don't worry about it, I got you.
When I so this is based on my casual Instagram usage, but when Joan Didion passed, I felt like a lot of influencers came out of the woodwork to show that they read a lot of Joan Didion. So I feel like by proxy, Joan Didion's work is hot girl summer
Hot.
book.
Joan Didion is very hot girl author.
Okay, that's a hot girl
Hot,
author.
depressed, sad, hot and sad.
Who's
Manic
a-
Pixie
who's
girl
like
author.
Manic Pixie
Manic
girl
Pixie
author.
girl
Yes.
author, like very pro cigarettes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
being mean and bitchy.
Because you're sad.
Yeah.
It's okay to be mean when you're sad.
What's like a hot guy book then? Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. Oh man, hot man book. I like.
But we all know that men. I can attest that dudes like we don't read, so this might be a challenge.
I feel
I have
like
books that are red flag books. Yeah,
Oh,
well,
what
tell
are-
us the hot
what are
man
red
book
flag books?
first.
red flag.
Oh my
hot
god,
man
are you
books.
kidding me? Okay, there are so many red flag books. Okay, men, listen up. If you're a straight man and you're trying to land a straight woman, we will never ever talk to you if you're reading Jack Kerouac, Bukowski, you know, the obvious ones.
Salinger.
Bangers.
What else? What's the horrible one with the guy with the 3 names? The Jester, Infinite Jest.
David Foster Wallace.
Obviously.
Robert Foster Wallace.
Yeah, I've literally, I'm not joking. I've literally walked out of a man's apartment ready to have sex when I saw that on the shelf, and that is every person has that story.
I'm gonna add Jonathan Franz into that list too. But
What's
I
yeah.
will say, red flag, weeaboo. So like weeaboo girl
Oh.
book is Haruki Murakami. There's always the white
Yes.
always the white people who be
Yes.
reading a lot of Haruki Murakami who
yes.
who be
They're
knowing
like,
a
I
little bit
love
too
Asian
much about-
lit. They're like, I love Asian lit. What's the newest Murakami book that you have? And I was like, that's it. Like,
Wait, Brian, what are your red flag books? If somebody has a book, like what would, if you saw it on the shelf, what would make you leave?
You know, I'm a if you read, I'm just happy you read. No, red flag books for me would be like I don't think I have red flag books for women. I just notice guys who read the books like the authors you mentioned, and I immediately hate them because I'm like, oh, you're doing this more for the perception of being seen
Yeah.
reading this than actually enjoying this shit.
I got a good one. Sapiens. If you have Sapiens on your shelf, like, I think I'm gotta go.
I have
I
Sapiens.
vaguely heard. Maybe I was like, I vaguely heard. I've heard of that book.
I'd
And maybe I just saw it at Brian's apartment.
mansplaining and quoting Sapiens like no one's business.
Sapiens.
Brian got really
don't
quiet.
read a
He's like,
lot.
I have Sapiens on my shelf.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Brian is like-
actually, I'm gaslighting you because evolutionarily I'm programmed this way.
Lucy, let's try to read all the book titles behind Brian. We can see it's like Infinite Jest, Lolita.
No, right next to me I have My Year Abroad by Chang-Rae Lee. I have Savage
Brian's got good
Detectives
books.
by Roberto Bolaño and Disorientation.
Oh,
I
you
got
got some
good
good books. You got some good books there.
That's good.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I also have Jack Kerouac, but that's not in the. It's not on screen right now.
It's fine. It just shouldn't be invisible. You can have it. Just hide it. It's my advice to men.
All right. Well, time for our juicy question. So listen up, listeners. If you want to hear what Lucy is ashamed of, you're going to have to go to our Patreon and subscribe at patreon.com/feelingasian. We've rebooted our benefits. Check it out. We're giving you a whole lot more content, which based on our A/B testing, that's what you guys all want is more content. So you're getting it. Allegedly. But without further ado, Lucy, what is something you're ashamed of? Well, we had some laughs and it got pretty damn real towards the end, but I'm glad you shared with us, Lucy. But before we let you go, we like to leave our guests with this one last question, and that is, what is something that you're proud of?
I'm really proud that I was able to follow my dreams. I just never knew that was something that was going to be on my path, and I'm super proud of myself for even taking the risk. Like, I don't even care about the result. I'm just proud that I did it. I hope that makes sense.
That's amazing.
I'm like already
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, I'm proud of myself. Like,
No, I think that's like, I always say this, and I've said this a lot now. And, I was like, when I first started doing comedy, because I had a similar path too. Like, I made a decision to follow my dreams, and abandon this other life that was not fulfilling me. And I remember being like, damn, like I'm 33. I started when I was 33, and I was like, I suck at this. I still kind of suck at it, but like, I was like, I suck at stand up. What was I gonna say? And like, fuck, what was I gonna say? I forgot my inspiring little story. I was just listening to my inner voice telling myself that I suck.
Following your dreams.
Like
your
following-
dreams.
Following my dreams. What was I gonna
33
say?
comedy.
33. What was I gonna say?
And you were like, even though I suck at this.
But you're proud of yourself.
I'm proud of myself. Oh my God, I forgot my inspiring little fucking message. Fuck it. Don't ever follow your dreams. Stay at your doctor job. Do
Yeah.
what your parents tell
And
you.
if you work
Oh,
in-
this is what I was gonna say. Wait, I remembered. Sorry. It was like, because I saw the statistic, like the first step, right? For you to show up at the fucking open mic, for you to like look into renting a space to open a bookstore or whatever your dream is, that first step, 99% of people don't take that first step because that's how scary it is, going into the audition to become an actor. And so that step is the difference between everybody and then us. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but like going into the fucking open mic as a 33-year-old that sucks at comedy, that was brave, and it's okay that I'm like, I did this thing, and a lot of people can't even do that. And it's sad because it's not even about the talent. It's about the like just pushing yourself to do that. Do you know what I mean? That little step is like the moon.
As they
Agree.
say, showing up is half the battle, baby.
And once you take that first step, it's like, who cares if you suck? You did it.
You
And
did
most
it.
people can't. So that was my inspiring story. Who cares if you suck?
Woo!
I loved it. Good morning. Who
Thank
cares
you.
if you suck?
Good morning. You're a piece of shit, but no one cares about you. That's my morning monologue when I wake up.
Well, Lucy, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being an inspiration. And I don't know, thank you for being you. I think a lot of our listeners
You and me books.
will find a lot of inspiration in your story. And
Yeah.
this is your time to shine. Plug your business. Where can our New York listeners find You and Me Books?
Find us in Chinatown, Manhattan on 44 Mulberry Street. Come say hi, come stay for a coffee, and listen to me make really bad jokes. So come on over.
And do you have a website?
Yeah, youandmebooks.com. And the
You and Me
Instagram
Books.
is
Can
at
people
You and
order
Me
on
Books.
your website?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't get your books from Amazon. Don't cross-reference Goodreads. Go to youandmebooks.com and cross-reference Storygraph. That's the one takeaway from this episode.
And it doesn't matter if you suck.
And if do you have, okay, let's see, do you carry all of the authors that we had on the show? Do you have Crime in H Mart?
Of course.
Do you have
Do you have Mary
Sapiens
H.K.
by Yuval Noah
Stop.
Harari?
Well, I definitely have Yolk. I love Mary. I think she's wonderful.
Okay, good.
Brian,
Mary
I
H.K.
totally
Choi,
missed
good.
that mumble. I'm so sorry.
Do you have Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari?
I do not. I do not have Sapiens in store.
Whoa!
Do you have
don't-
Murakami books?
I do have Murakami books in store.
That's okay. That's support Asian.
I also like Murakami
Creatives.
sometimes, but that's okay.
I do too.
Do you have
I do
The
too.
Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson?
do not have that in store.
Good. You know what? That
Wait,
young
no,
me
I'm
to
talking
your
about the
earlier
authors.
response.
Oh, do you have Alexander Chi? I'm talking
Of
about
course. How to write an autobiography. Yeah.
So all of the authors that we've had on our podcast are at You and Me Books, so you can buy their books there. Oh, I don't want to. And there's so many other ones, but I don't want to. Eric Kim,
Korean American. Yeah, of course.
and of course
Let's
David.
go.
David, author of Pretty Boy.
Yeah, David Yee.
David.
Let's-
Ye- oh my God.
Also-
my God, all of them.
Young me, I want to. I'm
hope
going
I'm
to
not
add a
forgetting
footnote.
anyone.
Add a footnote here. Immediate
Yeah.
red flag is anyone who reads Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck and those like accompanying self-help books that are like, yeah, like just be the fucking inner self and fucking fuck yeah.
Who needs
a-
to read a book on how to not give a fuck? It's easy not to give a fuck. Just have depression.
But that's where I become an elitist, like, academic POS, because I actually read that book, and then midway through I was like, who the fuck are you? You're just some white dude with too much confidence and have like, why? You're like, what? Like, who are you to tell me what to do? And then I stopped reading it.
Good for you, Brian.
Good, you stopped giving a fuck.
You
Yeah, I
stopped
stopped
giving a
Look
fuck.
like the book
Subtly.
Well, You and Me Books. Everyone, please go check it out. Young Me, where can our listeners find you online?
Oh, YM Mayor and Young Me Mayor on TikTok. How about you, Brian?
You guys can find me online at It's Brian Park and follow the podcast online at Feeling Asian Podcast. We're on all socials. Support us on Patreon. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you here next week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.